welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, today we're taking a look at the Prime Minister's 3-hour long podcast with Lex Friedman. It is not so much what he said, though, of course, that is important, but also the context of what he said, the timing of why he said it. He chose to make this podcast, why he chose Lex Friedman and not any of our domestic media. Well, I think the answer to that is pretty well known. But it's a very candid, freewheeling conversation, and nothing was off the table. That is interesting. From geopolitical to domestic politics to spiritual to his everyday life, his growing up, his equation with the RSS, and even the Gujarat riots in 2002 post-Kodra riots. I have not seen him, heard him talk of this for a very long time. He gave an explanation, which of course we will discuss. He put it into context, and is that going to be now the final word as far as the BJP is concerned and the opposition on the riots? That is also something that's going to be coming up in today's conversation. Joining me on the show is Ashutosh. She's the founding editor of satyahindi.com. Neerja Chowdhury, she's an author. She's written that book on how prime ministers decide, which is something which will help us also decode how this prime minister decides. And Sandip Ghose, she's a political columnist, commentator, and someone who we've had very often on the show. But Neerja, I'll begin with you. We've seen Prime Minister Modi's podcast. We've heard it, decoded it. What is your first takeaway in the big overall impression that he wants to give? Why this podcast?
There were, of course, I'll say something on, why this kind of podcast that he went in for. But overall, if I was to sum it up, he wanted to project a softer, spiritual, statesman-like Modi into his third term, a peacemaker globally. So in all, I think he was trying to go in for a rebranding of Modi in his third term. This has implications for RSS. This has implications, he hopes, globally. Of course, there was a message for Trump. There was a message for China. And he was also, things that he could not say diplomatically through behind the scene channels. He used this podcast to convey those messages. And of course, it is not the usual. There has been a lot of debate on the kind of interview it was. It didn't have difficult questions. And I think we are into a new media, podcasting. Somebody said very, very aptly, which I was listening to, that, it has become part of diplomacy. And they chose Modi, whatever it does very, very carefully, calibrated. Much thought goes into it. Thought goes into the timing of it. It comes a month after his US visit. So it's also a response to all that they're facing with the US and Donald Trump in his second term, with the tariffs that he's threatening to impose come April. India is navigating a difficult situation. But he chose to, use this podcaster very carefully, not the normal kind of person, but very popular, which are the audiences he's going to be able to reach out to, which are not just Indian audiences. So I think this is also a thing we are going to see much more of with the political class and people in government, in order to say what they have to, using podcasters as the way to convey their messages.
Well, Ashutosh, that's something, it is a new form of communication. You don't get hard questions. You can talk what you want to. You can do your own imagery branding without, the journalist will bring back historical facts and, try and question you. But apart from that, Neerja said it was like a softer spiritual Modi. Why this image now in his third term?
See, Priya, first of all, we have to understand that nobody is allowed to ask tough questions and the counter questions and the subsidiary questions to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That is for sure. And this is ended. That kind of question answer session has ended in 2007. The Karan Thapar had the interview. So let's not get into that. The fact of the matter is, I think this interview is basically addressed to the global audience. It is basically addressed to reach out to the Donald Trump. It is basically addressed to calibrate India's foreign policy vis-a-vis China. It is basically trying to reposition India into the global disruptive world. So a lot of things are happening globally, and thanks to Mr. Donald Trump. So in that context, because when Mr. Narendra Modi says Mr. Donald Trump is for America first, I'm also for India first, and that's the connect between us. So and he has praised Donald Trump like anything. So that has to be understood in the context that when Mr. Narendra Modi was there in Washington DC, at the same time the Indians immigrants were illegally living over there were planned to send in shackles and handcuffed. So that must have hurt his image. That must have hurt his ego, Mr. Narendra Modi's ego, and he must have realized that the kind of man he's dealing with in the White House, this is not the man he knew much before. In fact, nobody has a clue that Mr. Donald Trump will be such a man after assuming second time power. So he is trying to reach out to Mr. Donald Trump and trying to convey to him that if there is any misunderstanding, if there is a communication gap in White House about India and Narendra Modi, I think that's not true. Secondly, very subtly, and I think that's very rightly he has done it, that he has also sent message to the Chinese that we are ready for a pre-2020 kind of relationship. And I'm not very surprised by that, because a few months back, before this interview happened, or this interview became public, the Chinese has said in its statement that why can't the dragon and the elephant dance together? I think Mr. Narendra Modi was reciprocating to that. The third point is, I think he has also realized that the liberal global world is breaking down. And in that context, it is important that India should reposition itself where we stand. It's like whether we are with the Americans or whether with the Chinese, or whether we are living in the multipolar world. So I think in that context, he tried to reach out to the global audience. The Indian audience is not his target, and he wants to project his image globally. That don't underestimate me, even if my party hasn't got the 272 numbers, even if my party is dependent on allies, and even if I'm fighting a battle with the RSS. So in that context, don't think that I'm a very rigid person. I'm flexible, I'm resilient, and I'm willing to walk a few steps with the Donald Trump as well as with the Chinese Xi Jinping.
So he's positioning India, Sandeep, geopolitically, but the message it sent back home also. And secondly, Ashutosh, I agree, the Prime Minister Modi, the questions are scripted, but I haven't seen Rahul Gandhi also take a hard interview. Now everybody's reaching to the podcasters, and mainstream media is really going to be having a tough time finding interviews, people who will be able to talk to them candidly. But Sandeep, the message it sends back home.
See, Priya, when you're communicating, you have to choose two things. You have to choose the medium as well as the message. Okay, and Mr. Modi, being a master communicator, he's very good at both. What I see here, not disagreeing with anything Neerja or Ashutosh has said, certainly it's a repositioning exercise, but I'll take it a step further. What we in our marketing terminology call it a blue ocean strategy, where you're redefining competition. You're redefining competition, you're trying to change the paradigm against which he has been judged. So Modi's audience here is neither the people who are already converted, one way or the other, positively or negatively. He's trying to reach beyond them. And for reaching beyond them, people who have so far known Modi just by a couple of headlines, something about Gujarat or about Indian leader, something here. So he is a much bigger entity than that, or he is positioning that he is a much larger leader, much larger person, and who has these various other aspects to himself, whether it's a spiritual aspect or a visionary aspect, or this aspect of a person who has risen, from the roots, the kind of stuff he has done as a prachara, all of that persona he's trying to paint to, as I said, a blue ocean audience who know very little about him. And they are arousing the curiosity. And that's why even among podcasters, why he has chosen a podcaster like Lex Fridman, who actually dwells on much softer issues. Rather than there are podcasters today, who Trump is talking to, etc., who are hardcore political podcasters. So in those times when you had interviewers, Indira Gandhi had chosen a David Frost or people like that, and you could have chosen some maybe top-notch political journalists. But then you're confining yourself to a space which has already been defined by you, for you. You are not setting the agenda. You are not creating the talking points. And that is what he has managed to do there, and including in India. So today in India, people are not really, trying to find some, even Congress trying extremely hard to find prick holes in this whole thing. They're finding some straight threads which they're trying to pick on. But you cannot pick on what he has said, say, about Gujarat, or what he has said about something else and bring him back to the local agenda. Even here, people are today talking about all these larger points he had made, including about RSS. For the first time, anybody within RSS or BJP has also tried to position RSS in a different avatar, so to speak, which in the West, people have likened it to various other militant right-wing organizations, etc. But he has lifted RSS to another level. He has taken the conversation to a civilizational level from a political level.
Interesting, very well said. But let's take on the point of the RSS, Neerja, because is this a time where the BJP RSS relationships have been going up and down ever since the JP Nadda's comment about hum saksham hai, then how the RSS didn't help, then they helped in Haryana, Maharashtra, and helped them win. Now the choice of a new BJP president is up in the air. So you'd see all that given the background. How do you interpret his reach out to the RSS?
His reach out to the RSS, I think, is as important as his reach out to Donald Trump. And with the RSS, it may yield a greater dividends. For him to announce, or let it be known through a story, that he may go to Nagpur on March 30th and meet with Mohan Bhagwat. And that'll be an official meeting. And I think he's only had a couple of meetings with Mohan Bhagwat. And remember that we know that the RSS has been unhappy. We know that RSS is reined itself in 2024 Lok Sabha elections, which affected the outcome in Uttar Pradesh, which led to the party, not getting a majority. So the RSS, and then the RSS turned around. RSS put its best foot forward, and they won Haryana, Maharashtra, and Delhi. Everybody knows that. Now, RSS's concern has been against the cultification that has taken place. Of course, that they are not been included in decision making as they used to be in the past, but also that one person's cult has been built up, whereas they believe in collective decision making. And they would like to have a greater say in, as far as the organization is concerned, maybe not in government, but in the organization. So the fact that the president of the party has not yet been announced, it's a long time since 2024 elections, and it was said at that time, by the end of June 2024, we will hear the new name. Of course, there have been various reasons given that there were elections here and elections there, but whatever, shows that there is yet not been a consensus on the name. Now, Mr. Modi deciding to go to Nagpur indicates to me that perhaps a consensus has been arrived at on a person, or will be arrived at. The final contours will be fleshed out while he's there. And also that he's bringing the RSS back on the decision-making high table. So those are very important things, because now they are into the third term, they will need the RSS, and our RSS, from what people say, has flexed its muscles. Why should we be campaigning for you, our cadres, if we're not going to be given the chance to have a say in what the organization should look like? So I think it'll be very interesting to see who they zero in. All kinds of names over the last weeks and months have been doing the rounds. But a figure that is acceptable to both sides, Modi and Mohan Bhagwat,
Yes.
I think they may be arriving at a consensus. It's the sense one gets.
Okay, that's in fact a figure that is acceptable to both the RSS and the BJP. There are some names during the rounds. We'll also discuss those, but I'm going to take a quick break and come back and keep the conversation going. So stay with us. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We're here discussing Prime Minister Modi's 3-hour-long podcast with Lex Friedman and the takeaways from it. More specifically, Ashutosh, the relationship between BJP and RSS. Now, I also want to tell our viewers, Ashutosh is coming out with his latest book, that is, Reclaiming Bharat, and I'm sure on that there will be a talk of narrative building, and when there's talk of narrative building, there is talk of the RSS, of course. But how do you see the equations, Prime Minister Modi, what he said about the RSS, and any names that you want to speculate on the next BJP president?
See, I think that the Neerja ji has put it rightly, but I see things slightly in a different perspective. For me, I think the whole RSS at the ideological level as well as an organizational level is now going through a transition period. The transition period for the three things. One, there is a clash of cultism versus the collectivism within the RSS fold. There is a clash of separateness and the integrative approach of the RSS. And also there is a clash of how to move forward ideologically. Within this framework, if we look at, Narendra Modi has been going for the individualism, has given hints during the parliament election that we don't need you. And so the RSS has been very, very unhappy. Now, RSS also knows that the way things are going right now, it will damage RSS, Hindutva, and the BJP in the long run. And within that framework, it is important that the next president of the BJP should be, if not a choice of RSS, but there should be some consensus, some understanding between the BJP and the RSS, Bhagwat and the Narendra Modi. So both have to seed the ground. And see, Narendra Modi have decided to visit Nagpur. Imagine, Narendra Modi is a hardcore RSS pracharak who became the prime minister, did not visit his headquarters, of which he has said so many good things in the interview itself. What stopped him from going to the Nagpur? What stopped him? Nothing. He could have gone. Nobody would have objected to it. So that is a great climb down by Narendra Modi himself. He has also realized that his term probably might be the last term. He should be worried about his legacy. He should be worried about how he will be remembered within the RSS fold and outside. So a great sense of history which Mr. Narendra Modi always has. I think he is trying to have some kind of peace, some kind of truce, some kind of ceasefire with Bhagwat. And Bhagwat again is a very different person in the mold of Balasaheb Devras. He is open and he wants to reposition RSS ideology. That is why he has guts to say that Hindutva without Muslim is not Hindutva. He has guts to say that har masjid mein shivling kyun khojna. He has guts to say that sabka DNA ek hai. He has guts to say that कुछ लोगों ने राम मंदिर के बहाने से अपना करियर बनाना शुरू कर दिया. So he wants to reposition. He knows the dangers of extreme Hinduism, Hindutva, and how the history will remember. He doesn't want Hindutva to become a political Islam which has been discredited globally. He wants to reclaim the Hindutva which is softer and which talks about Hindutva, which talks about Hindu interest, talks about Hindu unity, but which should not smack of hatred towards any other religion.
In other words, Hinduism. Sandip, your response to what Ashutosh, I could see you disagreeing visually, but also why this meeting? Why did the Prime Minister reach out to the RSS?
I don't disagree with Ashutosh in his place. He's right. He's right about his assessment of Bhagwat. Maybe my point is this is not about Bhagwat. This is about Modi. And you must understand that Modi, what he is positioning himself at the end, in his third term, and which one doesn't know whether it's continuing in the fourth term or whatever.
He's actually announced in Parliament that I'm coming back for a fourth term.
That's fine. But irrespective of that, at the third term, he wants to go through positioning himself at a very, very different level. And that Modi, being originally an RSS person, his final identity cannot be an identity that is devoid of RSS. Unlike, say, other earlier political BJP leaders who were happy to be seen as the political leaders and not RSS somewhere else, Modi would like to leave his legacy as that Virat Hindu Hriday Samrat sort of a thing, which encompasses the entire gamut of this whole ecosystem as a towering personality. So he would not only have to build bridges, he is going to position himself again where there is no such conflict. By the time going further, he would be seen as the ultimate, whatever, idol or this thing after in the whole BJP RSS Hindutva pantheon. He would like to, whether he succeeds in doing that or not, so his moves will be playing, and he would also, in a subtle way, whether through diplomacy, whether through whatever way, he would also try to redefine and reposition the RSS as far as not only India, but again, the world is concerned. These are all interrelated. Don't see them as isolation. I don't think he's any longer playing the small moves of what is going to get him the next election, or whether he's going to be able to choose the next president of RSS or a few other small calculations. Now, he has upped his game to a very, very different level, and we are yet to figure out which level he's going to play now.
So let's try and figure that level out. He is definitely in search of a legacy. What would you say would be, the prime, if, Neerja, if you were to give a headline to the prime minister, what would be his most enduring legacy?
See, if you're asking me,
Neerja, I can ask you, I can begin with you. Yes, Sandeep.
I would say that it's part of all of you keeping on saying he could be the third term prime minister, but he'll never be a Nehru. He would like to leave behind being seen that not only third or fourth or whatever term you are saying, he would like to be in his own rights, be positioned in the same league or in the same kind of league as a maker of modern India or whatever. And which today people mention Nehru. Whether he succeeds or not is another matter. His critics may say, oh, that's too tall a dream, he will never be able to match. That's a different issue. But as far as he's concerned, he's like, he would try to position himself in that way. So therefore, you see, in his talk, we were discussing in another show when Neerja and me were there, somebody said very correctly, you see, in Modi's conversations, he doesn't draw any references from the Western world, the Western system, either idioms or any parallels or something. He is positioning himself as very, very Indic personality, which rooted in the Indian philosophy, Indian civilization system, and that is how. And that also is a smart move to differentiate himself in today's internet global scenario, where everybody is trying to jostle, oh, am I a bigger leader than him, or am I more important? He's redefining, as I said, in the Blue Ocean Strategy, I'm in a different league, different class. So I don't bother about Putin, I don't bother about Zelensky. We set our own agenda, we have our own philosophy, our way of life.
Neerja, what would you say? Hey, okay, not a Nehru is one part of the legacy. I mean, he's already stolen the Nehru jacket as the Modi jacket, but apart from that, what is he? What he's not?
No, he would, Dr. Karan Singh had said to me that Modi may not admit this, but he would like to surpass Nehru. Ideologically very different, appealing to the global community, mass leaders. They have several similarities, but also ideologically could not be poles apart. And but he would, I have a feeling that he is now getting into the legacy world. It is Amit Shah that's dealing with the new education policy, Rao and language Rao in Tamil Nadu. It's not the Prime Minister who's dealing with it. Even though you find Tamil Nadu, he is well regarded by large sections. They may not want BJP, but he himself is well regarded for whatever reason. So I think this podcast interview may be, the beginning of, as I say, rebranding as moving towards leaving a legacy. And the outreach also to the RSS, Priya. Maybe that RSS was unhappy with him. Would they have insisted that the 75th year norm that the BJP itself has laid down for Advani, Murli Manor Joshi should also apply to him? I think they may now have accepted that he is going to be around, and probably is their best bet to further their agenda, further their ideology, provided he becomes more of a team man, getting others on board, things that are dear to the RSS. So if they can work out this rebalancing between the RSS and the BJP, that's why this meeting will be very important to see what comes out. It's not only who's going to be the next president of the party, but certainly I would say legacy. But I used to be told by people before the 2024 elections, आप देखना third term में मोदी और inclusive हो जाएंगे. And if I was to express my wish, it would be a Narendra Modi, the kind of legacy he wants to leave, but an inclusive Narendra Modi who makes the minorities and the Muslims of India feel I am secure in this country and I am as much of a first-class citizen as anybody else.
Okay.
That could be his wonderful legacy if that could be achieved.
And is he stepping towards that? Ashutosh, what would you feel that would be?
See, I think the history has to judge. But whatever I have seen about Narendra Modi, I could say one thing, and I deeply disagree with Sandeep, that Narendra Modi is highly Western in his approach, highly Western in his thought process, and there is no comparison between him and Nehru. Nehru, despite being the prime minister and phenomenally popular, I think no leader in this country except Gandhi had been so popular, had all the humility to maintain Guru-Shishya relationship with Gandhi. The kind of reverence he had for the Gandhi, Narendra Modi had failed to do the same thing with the RSS. Again, between the BJP and the RSS, it's a Guru-Shishya relationship. RSS is the moral force, like Gandhi was the moral force, and the Narendra Modi was the political force, as Nehru was a political force. But the relationship, organic relationship which Nehru had with Gandhi, is today not seen with the. That's why I say Mr. Narendra Modi is Western in his thought, that there is nothing called Guru-Shishya relationship. Second point, I think. But the problem with Narendra Modi is, and sometimes the psychoanalysis has to be done, that he is always quarreling with Nehru. And I'm reminded of a last shot of a Nixon film, where Richard Nixon, after resignation, I'm not saying in a negative sense, I'm not comparing Nixon with Narendra Modi, I'm just drawing a parallel. So what happens, that Nixon says, I did so many things. I changed geopolitics. I ended Vietnam War. I brought a historic change between US and the Chinese relationship. But history remembers Kennedy. So it's like that kind of a thing. That Narendra Modi wants to be remembered as Nehru. He is fighting with Nehru. And that is why he always tried to demolish Nehru, because he needs an endorsement from the Nehru and the Nehruvians' ideology. That is his problem. I think someday the psychoanalyst will do a kind of a study on him and will get to. And that's a fundamental the problem with the RSS. RSS always looks endorsements from Gandhi, from Subhas Bose, from Ambedkar, except Nehru, because they want to be remembered as not the outlier of the system, but the part of the system. And that is why they always say, Mr. Modi has again in the parliament said, the Kumbh is like a Dandi Yatra. You don't have to go to the Dandi Yatra and Gandhi. You say, we did it.
Okay. I think the problem with giving Ashutosh the last word is that it sparks up a whole new debate. So I'm going to call you all back for that debate. In fact, a lot of interesting questions have been raised over here. But we're going to keep, the search for the legacy or pinpointing the definitive legacy of Narendra Modi. That's something that we're going to be see unfolding in the next few months and years. But for now, thank you for this conversation.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.